At this hour, I'm Christina, Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories. Pete Hegseth is being praised for his performance during his confirmation hearing where Democrats continued their smear campaign. Hegseth, who's been tapped to be the Secretary of Defense, scoring points for his intelligence, experience, and poise under pressure. Watch.
Stories would come out, and people would reach out to me and say, I've spoken to this reporter about who you really are, and I was willing to go on the record. But they didn't print my quote. They didn't print any of my quotes. Or, I've worked with you for 10 years, or I was your accountant, or I was your chief operating officer, or I was your board member, or I was with you on 100 different tour stops for Concerned Veterans for America. No one called me. No one asked about your conduct on the record or off the record. Instead, a small handful of anonymous sources were allowed to drive a smear campaign, an agenda about me, because our left-wing media in America today, sadly, doesn't care about the truth. All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is warfighting.
As day 2 of the confirmation hearings for President Donald Trump's cabinet position nominees continues, many are still mocking Elizabeth Warren for her failed attack on Pete Hegseth.
You're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one.
7 of President Donald Trump's nominees taking part in Senate confirmation hearings today, including Governor Christina, Marco Rubio, and Pam Bondi. This comes just one day after an explosive hearing with Pete Hegseth, where the Democrats' attacks were so bad that Senator Mark Mullin had to call out their hypocrisy, and Senator Kevin Cramer apologized to the man tapped to lead the Pentagon.
How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job? And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No. But it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because the man's made a mistake.
I'm sorry for what has been happening to you, particularly the very idea that you should have to sit there and answer hypothetical potential, in somebody's imagination, crimes that may take place at some point. And wouldn't that disqualify you if you were a murderer or if you were a rapist? Unfair. And I'm embarrassed.
President Donald Trump is praising the governor of Florida after Ron DeSantis signed a proclamation calling a special session shortly after Trump takes the White House to approve funding to help with Trump's mass deportation plan. Trump taking to social media to say, "Thank you, Ron. Hopefully other governors will follow." In the proclamation, DeSantis outlines how Biden's open border policies have allowed a record-setting number of illegals in the country, impacting Americans and posing a threat to public safety. Governor DeSantis saying Florida will support Trump and will have sufficient resources to do so.
We have a responsibility to be in this fight. State and local officials in Florida must help the Trump administration enforce our nation's immigration laws.
Troopers and canines have tracked down and arrested multiple illegal migrants who were running from officials in Texas on private ranches. Canine Shark and his handler tracked 6 illegal migrants for 1.5 miles in Maverick County. With help from DPS's border-mounted patrol unit, all 6 illegal migrants were found and apprehended. According to Lieutenant Chris Olivares, some of the migrants had illegally crossed the border numerous times, including one of the males named Victor Antonio Olan de la Cruz from Mexico, who he said, quote, had numerous charges for illegal entry dating back to 2014. He came across the border this time through Maverick County, where DPS troopers were ready and arrested him for criminal trespass. In fiscal year 2024, the Human Trafficking Division at DPS arrested 900 suspects and rescued 440 human trafficking victims. President Donald Trump is planning to create a new agency to collect revenue from other countries. It's called the External Revenue Service, prompting many people to call for an end to the taxation of the American people. Trump said in a social media post that he would create the department on January 20th, the day he takes office as president for a second term. He added that Americans have been taxed for too long by the Internal Revenue Service. The Tax Foundation estimates that a 20% universal tariff on all imports into the U.S. would generate $4.5 trillion over 10 years, before then adding $3.3 trillion over the next decade. Right now, the IRS is collecting $16 to $18 trillion every year from American taxpayers. Dozens of people have been arrested by the Santa Monica police for allegedly looting the homes of people that evacuated ahead of the deadly California fires. The suspects were found in homes in Santa Monica and the neighboring Pacific Palisades. Officials say 10 suspects were discovered within the Palisades evacuation zones. 6 of the 10 were carrying burglary tools. All suspects traveled to the disaster area from outside of Santa Monica. As of Wednesday morning, more than 38,000 acres have burned, with officials reporting 24 deaths. More than 6 million people are under critical fire threat. President Joe Biden is planning to lift the U.S. designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism. The announcement from the White House is part of a deal facilitated by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners on the island. Senior U.S. administration officials said, quote, many dozens of political prisoners and others considered by the U.S. to be unjustly detained would be released by the end of the Biden administration at noon on January 20th. The U.S. will also ease some economic pressure on Cuba, as well as a 2017 memorandum issued by then-President Donald Trump, toughening U.S. posture toward Cuba. The determination by the outgoing Democrat is likely to be reversed as early as next week. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made a last-minute case for a plan for the post-war reconstruction and governance of Gaza. Blinken talked about the proposal in a speech and discussed the importance of ensuring its success after the Biden administration leaves office. He said the plan envisions the Palestinian Authority inviting, quote, international partners to stand up an interim governing authority to run critical services and oversee Gaza. Other partners, notably Arab states, would provide forces to ensure security in the short term. President Donald Trump has received the first ever presidential commemorative inaugural Diet Coke bottle from the chairman and CEO of Coca-Cola Company, James Hegseth. The company honored Trump and his upcoming inauguration with the one-of-a-kind tribute. The bottle features a special label that reads, "The inauguration of the President of the United States," with Trump's name and inauguration date, January 20th, 2025, printed below. The bottle came in a special red box with a note highlighting Coca-Cola's $55 billion contribution to the U.S. economy. That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina, Aguayo, Salem News Channel.